The dying alien. The hospital lights were cold and white, shining on the broken body of a young alien girl. Her name was Alira, and she was not breathing well. Her chest rose and fell like a weak flame about to die. Machines beeped around her, but the sounds were fading, becoming slower. Weaker. Doctors moved quickly, their strange hands shaking. Their faces were long and pale, their eyes glowing in fear. One of them whispered, "Her body cannot hold. Her kidney has failed. Without a new one, she will not survive the night." Silence filled the room. No alien spoke again. They all knew the truth. Elira's kind could not receive help from their own people. Their bodies were too fragile. Their organs were too rare. Only one thing could save her. Only a human organ would fit, but who would ever give such a gift? Everyone looked away. No one believed a human would do it. Outside the hospital, soldiers stood guard. War still burned between humans and aliens, and trust was like glass. Broken, sharp, impossible to fix. Elira's people had lost many, and the humans had lost even more. There was anger. There was hate. No one wanted to give life to an enemy. But in the corner of the ward, sitting on a chair, was a man. His name was David Carter, a soldier of Earth, a man who had seen too much death. He watched Elira with quiet eyes. She was young, maybe 16 in human years, though her alien features made it hard to tell. Her silver skin glowed under the hospital light. Her breathing was shallow. Every sound from her body was a cry for help. David clenched his fist. He remembered the battlefield. He remembered the screams of children, human and alien, crying in fear. War had taken enough. The doctor turned to him, voice sharp. "Human. Soldier, do not waste your time here. She cannot be saved. You do not need to stay." David stood up slowly. His voice was calm, but heavy with decision. "Tell me, if she had a kidney, would she live?" The doctor frowned. "Perhaps, but who would give such a thing? A human would never risk it." David looked at the pale girl again. Her hand twitched on the bed, fingers shaking as if she was fighting to stay in this world. "I will," he said. The room froze. Every alien doctor turned, their glowing eyes wide. One dropped his tools. Another stepped back in shock. "You?" the chief doctor asked. "You would give part of your body to an alien? Why?" "She is not your blood. She is not your kind." David's answer was simple. His voice did not tremble. "Because life is life, and hers matters too." Whispers rushed through the room. Some aliens said he was mad. Others said he was lying. No human would sacrifice for them. No soldier would risk weakness in war. But David stepped closer to the bed. He looked down at Elira. She was still half conscious, her eyes glowing faintly with silver light. For a moment their eyes met. Hers were filled with fear, confusion, and then a tiny spark of hope. "Prepare the surgery," David said. The doctor shook his head. "You do not understand. If you give your kidney, you may weaken. You may even die." David gave a small, tired smile. "I have faced death many times. If mine can give her a chance, then let it be." The operating room filled with tension. Blades were sharpened, machines prepared. Aliens whispered that this was madness. Humans and aliens were enemies. Yet here, in this room, one human was about to give life to one alien. As they rolled David onto the table, he closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of the blue sky, of the people who had already fallen in war. He thought of the chance that maybe, just maybe, this act would change something. The doctor's cut. The machine's word. Blood flowed. David gritted his teeth but did not cry out. Across from him, Elira's body stirred. As the new kidney was placed within her, her weak chest rose higher, her breath steadier. The machines that once slowed began to beat faster, stronger, like the beat of new life. But David's body grew cold. His vision blurred. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Elira's face, glowing softly as life returned to her. The doctor whispered in shock. She breathes again. Because of him. The war outside raged on, but in this single room, something new had been born. A bond written not in words, not in treaties, but in blood and sacrifice. And as David slipped into unconsciousness, one question remained heavy in the air. Would he live to see the life he had saved? The hospital was quiet now. The war outside still raged, but inside these walls there was only the sound of soft breathing and steady beeps. Elira opened her eyes slowly. For the first time in days, the heavy weight on her chest was gone. Air flowed into her lungs like cool water after a desert walk. Her body felt weak, but alive. She turned her head and saw him, the human. David Carter lay in the bed across from hers. His face was pale, sweat running down his forehead. His body trembled with every breath. Tubes and machines surrounded him. He had given away a piece of himself. To her. Elira's silver eyes widened. She did not understand. Her people had told her all her life. Humans were selfish. Humans were cruel. Humans only cared for their own kind. Yet here was one, broken and bleeding, because he chose to save her. She whispered weakly. Why? Her voice was small. But David's eyes opened. He looked at her, tired yet calm. His lips curved into a faint smile. Because you deserved to live. Elira's chest tightened. She had no words. Among her people, life was always measured, calculated. No one gave without expecting something in return. But this human, he had given freely. The doctors entered the room. They checked David's wounds, shook their heads, and whispered among themselves. One of them looked at Elira. You must not forget. Your life belongs to him now. Without his gift, you would be gone. Elira stared at David. The weight of those words sank deep. A debt of life. She owed him everything. Days passed. David healed slowly. The surgery had left him weak, his body struggling to adjust. Every step was heavy, every movement painful, yet he never complained. He sat by the window when he could, staring at the alien sky. Elira often watched him in silence. She wanted to speak but did not know what to say. Gratitude felt too small. Her people would bow, swear loyalty, offer riches. But David was different. He never asked. He never demanded. Finally, one night, she gathered her courage. She walked to his side, still shaky on her legs. You gave me life, she said softly. Now my life is yours. David turned to her, surprised. No, he said firmly. Your life is yours. You owe me nothing. Elira shook her head, her silver hair brushing against her cheeks. Among my people, a life debt cannot be broken. I will stand with you. Until the end. David sighed, leaning back in his chair. His voice was rough but gentle. I didn't save you to own you. I saved you because life should not be thrown away. Not yours. Not anyone's. His words confused her even more. Kindness without price? Sacrifice without demand? It was something she had never known. But outside the hospital, whispers grew louder. Many aliens were not pleased. Some said David's act was dangerous. Others said Elira should have been allowed to die. Her survival would only bring trouble. There were even rumors that enemies within their own ranks wanted her gone. One evening, Elira heard two guards speaking in hushed tones. They will try again, the girl must not live. The human's gift was a mistake. Her heart pounded. Danger still hunted her. She rushed back to David's room, her breath fast. He was sitting on his bed trying to stretch his weak body. She grabbed his arm. They want to kill me, she whispered. They think saving me was wrong. David's eyes darkened. He stood, though his legs trembled. Then they'll have to go through me first. Elira stared at him in shock. He was Still weak, his body barely recovered, yet he spoke as if he feared nothing. "Why do you care so much?" she asked again. David looked at her, his voice steady, his eyes sharp. "Because if I gave you my life, I won't let anyone take it away." That night, danger came. Shadows moved through the hospital corridors. A figure slipped inside, holding a blade that gleamed under the dim lights. The assassin stepped closer to Illyra's bed, his eyes cold. But before he could strike, David moved. Weak but determined, he blocked the attack with his arm. Pain cut deep, blood dripping, but his stance did not break, Illyra gasped. The human soldier, even broken and scarred, stood like a wall before her. The assassin snarled, "Why protect her? She is not your kind." David's answer was sharp like steel. "Because she is alive, and that is reason enough." The fight was quick but brutal. With the help of hospital guards, the assassin was captured, but the message was clear. Illyra was still a target. As silence returned, Illyra sat by David's side. She pressed her hand against his bleeding arm, her eyes filled with tears. "You gave me your kidney. Now you bleed for me again. Why?" David smiled faintly, though his face was pale. "Because sometimes protecting life is the only battle worth fighting." Illyra looked at him, her heart racing with a strange new feeling. Gratitude was no longer the right word. Something deeper was growing, something she did not yet understand. And as the night closed in, one truth became clear. Her life was no longer just her own. The morning sun rose over the alien city, but its light felt heavy, not warm. Inside the hospital, guards doubled their patrol. The failed assassination had shaken everyone. Whispers ran through the halls like cold wind. Illyra sat beside David's bed. His arm was wrapped in fresh bandages from the attack. He should have been resting, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning every shadow in the room. "They will come again," Illyra said quietly. Her voice trembled, but her silver eyes burned with fear. "I heard them. They think I should not live. They will not stop." David leaned back, his breath steady. "Then we'll be ready." But the truth was different. He was still weak. His body, missing one kidney, had not yet adjusted. His strength was not what it once was. He knew it. Illyra knew it too, and that made the fear worse. Later that day, a group of alien officials entered the hospital. Their uniforms were clean, their eyes cold. They stood in a line, staring at David as if he was some strange creature. The leader, a tall alien with blue markings on his skin, spoke first. "Human soldier, your actions confuse us. Why would you give part of your body to one of ours? What game are you playing?" David frowned. "No game. I saved her because I could." The alien leader's voice grew sharper. "Or perhaps you plan to use her. A life debt is powerful among our people. Maybe you want her loyalty. Maybe you want her to betray her own kind." Illyra stepped forward quickly, her voice shaking but strong. "No, he asked for nothing. He saved me because he chose to." The officials did not believe her. Their glowing eyes narrowed. This cannot be trusted. A human who gives to an alien? Impossible. There must be a hidden reason. They left the room in silence, but their doubt remained like poison in the air. That night, Illyra sat in the corner, hugging her knees. "They think you are a liar," she whispered. "They think you saved me only to control me." David looked at her. His voice was calm, even when hers broke. "I don't care what they think. I know why I did it. And you know too." Illyra nodded slowly, but her heart felt heavy. She owed him everything, but now his sacrifice had turned him into a target as well. The danger grew worse. Strange faces appeared in the hospital corridors. Some soldiers looked at David with open hate. Some of Illyra's own people avoided her as if she was cursed. The humans outside the city called him a traitor for giving himself to an alien. Both sides whispered the same thing. This bond should not exist. One evening, as Illyra brought water to David, he spoke suddenly. "They don't trust me. They don't trust you. Maybe they never will." She placed the cup on the table, her hands shaking. Then what do we do? David's jaw tightened. We survive. Together. The next day, the hospital alarms screamed. Again. Not for sickness this time. An attack. Explosions shook the ground and smoke filled the air. Enemies had breached the city walls. The guards rushed to the front lines, leaving the hospital exposed. Elira's heart raced as she looked at David. He was still too weak to fight, but danger was moving closer. Stay here, she begged. You cannot move. But David pushed himself up, sweat dripping down his face. If they come for you again, I won't be lying in bed waiting. They hid behind the door as footsteps echoed down the hall. Shadows danced on the walls. Voices whispered in a language David did not understand, but Elira did. They're here for me, she whispered, terror in her eyes. The door burst open. Armed figures stormed in. The fight was chaos. David swung with what strength he had left, blocking one soldier with a chair. Elira grabbed a tray, striking another in desperation. Their movements were clumsy, desperate, but filled with fire. One enemy lunged at Elira, blade ready. David threw himself in front of her, taking the hit on his shoulder. He cried out in pain, but his stance did not fall. Blood soaked his shirt, yet he glared at the attacker with steel in his eyes. You'll have to kill me before you touch her. For a moment, the soldiers hesitated. They expected weakness from him. Not this. Burning will reinforcements arrived. Guards stormed in, capturing the intruders. The danger passed, but the room was left in ruins, blood and broken glass everywhere. As silence returned, Elira knelt beside David. She pressed her glowing hands against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Tears ran down her face. You are hurt again because of me, she whispered. Why do you keep standing in front of me? Why do you keep choosing me? David's breathing was heavy, his body shaking, but his voice was steady. Because if I gave you my kidney, I won't let anyone take that life away. Not while I can still stand. Elira's hands trembled. Something inside her chest shifted. Something more than gratitude. She realized the truth. This human was not just protecting her. He believed in her worth when even her own people did not. And for the first time in her life, Elira felt something strange and powerful. A bond deeper than duty, a bond stronger than fear. But outside the hospital, the war grew louder, and both of them knew this was only the beginning. The hospital was repaired, but the scars remained. The broken windows were replaced, the blood cleaned from the floors, yet the whispers still echoed in the halls. Some said the human soldier was reckless. Others said the alien girl was cursed. But to Elira, only one truth mattered. David Carter was alive. She often sat beside him, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. His wounds were healing, but he carried the pain quietly, never showing weakness. He would sometimes smile, even when sweat ran down his face from the effort of standing. You hide your pain, Elira said softly one morning. David looked at her, his tired eyes calm. Pain reminds me I'm alive, and if I'm alive, I can still protect you. Her silver eyes shimmered. She touched her chest, feeling her steady heartbeat, the beat of her life, given back by his sacrifice. This heart beats because of you, she whispered. Days turned into weeks. Elira began to follow David closely, learning his ways. She saw how he spoke little but acted much. When food was scarce in the hospital, he gave his share to the younger patients. When a guard was injured, he helped carry him without being asked. To Elira, it was strange. Among her people, kindness was rare. Loyalty had a price. But David gave without cost. One evening, as they watched the alien sunset together, Elira asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Do all humans give like you? David chuckled softly. No, many are selfish, many are cruel, but some try to be better. She tilted her head. And you? He stared at the horizon, the sky glowing red with fire from distant battles. His voice was low. I've seen too much death. If I can save even one life, it makes the darkness a little lighter. Elira was silent, but her heart felt heavy. His words were not just duty. They came from a wound deeper than flesh, the wound of a soul that had lost too much. But peace did not last. Rumors spread faster than healing. Human soldiers outside the city called David a traitor. Alien leaders whispered that Elira's survival was unnatural. Both sides hated what they did not understand. One night, Elira overheard a conversation between two alien nurses. "The girl is dangerous. She owes her life to a human. What if she chooses him over us?" Her chest tightened. Was she truly dangerous just because she lived? She returned to David's side, tears in her eyes. "They say I am a danger, that I will betray my own people." David looked at her with steady eyes. "Do you believe that?" "No," she cried. "I never asked for this, but now my life is tied to yours. They hate me for it." David placed a weak hand on her shoulder. "Then let them hate. You don't live for them. You live because your life matters." His words were simple, but they sank into her heart like fire. One evening, the power went out in the hospital. The halls turned dark. Only the faint glow of alien eyes lit the rooms. Fear spread quickly. Was it another attack? David stood, even though his body still ached. He grabbed a metal rod from the floor, ready to defend her again. Elira reached for his arm. "You cannot keep standing in front of me. You will break." He looked at her, his face firm. "Then I'll break standing, not hiding." Her chest tightened. In that moment, she realized something she had never dared to name. He was more than a savior. He was more than a protector. He was hers. Later that night, when the lights returned, Elira sat by the window alone. She pressed her hand against her heart, listening to its steady rhythm. "This heart beats because of him," she whispered. "But why does it beat faster when I look at him?" The feeling was new, strange, powerful. She had no word for it in her language. Gratitude was too small. Loyalty was too shallow. This was something deeper, something only humans seemed to know. She thought of David's smile, tired yet strong. She thought of the way he bled for her, the way he stood between her and death. She thought of the way his eyes held no hate, only quiet strength. And she understood. He had given her life. But now, she wanted to give him more than thanks. She wanted to give him her heart. But outside, the war grew louder. Explosions painted the horizon red. Soldiers marched. Enemies gathered strength. David knew his time of healing was running out. Soon he would have to choose, return to his people or stay with the alien girl who carried his gift. And Elira knew her people would never accept the bond she felt. To them, she was already marked. As the night closed, she whispered to herself, a vow burning in her chest. "If he gave me his kidney, I will give him my heart, no matter the cost." The sky above the alien city burned red. The sound of sirens screamed through the streets. Explosions shook the ground like thunder. War had finally come to the gates. Elira stood at the hospital window, her silver eyes wide with fear. She could see fire rising in the distance, ships crashing, and soldiers running through the smoke. The war that she and David had tried to forget was no longer far away. It was here. David Carter sat on the edge of his bed, tightening the straps of his boots. His body was still weak, scars fresh, but his hands were steady. He had been a soldier, too long to mistake the sound of battle. He knew what it meant. "They're coming," he said, his voice calm but heavy. Elira turned toward him, her voice trembling. "You cannot fight. You are still hurt. You gave too much already." David looked at her, his tired eyes firm. "I don't have a choice. If the city falls, they'll kill everyone in here. You, me, everyone." Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, but deep inside she knew he was right. The hospital staff rushed through the halls shouting orders, trying to move patients to safer places, but there was no safe place. The walls shook with every blast outside. A group of alien guards entered David's room. Their faces were tense, their weapons drawn. The leader pointed at him. "You, human soldier, You must come with us. We cannot risk you fighting with us. Your loyalty is uncertain." David frowned. "If I stay locked away, you'll lose fighters, and I won't abandon her." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Her?" He looked at Alira, then back at David. "You risk yourself again for her? Strange loyalty. Dangerous loyalty." Before more could be said, another explosion rocked the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Screams echoed from the lower floors. The guards had no time to argue. They ran out to meet the enemy. David grabbed a metal rod from beside the bed, the same one he had used before. "Not much of a weapon," he muttered. Alira stepped closer, her voice fierce. "Then I will fight too." He looked at her surprised. "You?" She nodded, fire burning in her silver eyes. "You gave me life. I will not let this war take yours." The fighting reached the hospital. Enemy soldiers stormed the corridors, their boots pounding, their weapons firing. The walls cracked, smoke filled the air, and the smell of burning metal spread everywhere. David moved first, striking one soldier with his rod. Pain shot through his body, but he did not stop. Alira followed, using her alien strength to push another attacker into the wall. The enemies were surprised. A human and an alien fighting side by side was something they had never expected. "Traitors!" one of them shouted. "The girl should be dead. The human is cursed." But Alira ignored the words. She stood in front of David, blocking another attack, her hands glowing faintly with the strange energy of her kind. She felt stronger than before, not because of her body, but because of her will. Hours felt like minutes. The hospital turned into a battlefield. Patients screamed, guards fell, and fire spread. At last, the main doors burst open. A massive enemy squad rushed in, weapons raised. David and Alira stood together at the center of the ruined hall, surrounded by smoke and broken glass. David gripped his rod tighter, though his arms shook. Alira stood close beside him, her chest rising fast, her heart beating louder than the battle around them. One soldier sneered. "The alien girl lives because of him. Kill the human and her debt ends." Alira stepped forward, her voice sharp like a blade. "Touch him and you will face me." The soldiers laughed. But their laughter died when David raised his voice, calm yet unshakable. "She is alive because of me, and as long as I breathe, no one takes her life." The fight exploded again. Blades clashed, shots fired, blood spilled. David fought like a man who refused to fall, every strike fueled by something stronger than his broken body. Alira fought beside him, her alien strength shielding him when his legs almost gave way. Together they moved as one, two lives tied by sacrifice, standing against the storm. But the battle was too large. The enemies kept coming, more and more, their numbers endless. The hospital shook again as part of the roof collapsed. David fell to one knee, his breath ragged, his body almost done. Alira grabbed him, holding him up. "You can't," she cried. "You will die." David smiled faintly through blood. "If I must, then let it be. But not without standing for you." Her eyes burned with tears. She pulled him close, her heart racing with something more than fear. For the first time, she felt what humans called love. The city outside screamed in fire and chaos. The hospital was only one small corner of the war, yet here something greater was born. A human and an alien, fighting side by side, not for orders, not for nations, but for each other. And though the world outside demanded hate, they chose something else. As the smoke thickened and the walls cracked again, Alira whispered to herself, gripping David's hand, "If he gave me his life, then I will give him mine. We will not fall alone." The alien city was burning. Smoke covered the skies and fire turned the night red. The sound of war was everywhere, screams, explosions, and the clash of steel. Inside the broken hospital, David Carter leaned against the wall, his body trembling. His shirt was torn, his arm still bleeding from the last fight. He could barely stand, yet his eyes were sharp, fixed on the shadows moving through the smoke. Beside him, Alira stood tall. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the firelight. Her breathing fast but her will unshaken. She had never fought a battle before, but tonight she had no choice. Her heart told her what her mind feared. If David fell, she would not survive either, not in body, not in spirit. "They're coming again," David said, his voice low but steady. Illyra nodded. "Then we face them together." The doors crashed. Open. A wave of enemy soldiers poured inside, their weapons raised, their faces hard with hate. "There," one of them shouted. "The girl who should have died and the traitor human who saved her." David lifted his metal rod, his knuckles white around the grip. His legs shook, but he stood like a wall. Illyra stepped closer to him, her own hands, glowing faintly with the strange light of her kind. The soldiers charged. David swung first, blocking a strike, then countering with raw force. Pain shot through his ribs, but he kept moving. Illyra struck another enemy, her strength surprising even herself. Together, they fought side by side, their movements unplanned yet perfectly matched, like two parts of the same fire. Every second was chaos. Blades cut, blood spilled, and the world narrowed to survival. David's body screamed to collapse, but each time he almost fell, Illyra caught him, and each time she was cornered, his rod cut the path clear. But the enemies did not stop. More came, their numbers endless. David fell to one knee, gasping for breath. "Too many," he muttered. Illyra's eyes burned with tears. She pulled him up, refusing to let him fall. "Then we fight until there are none left." The soldiers surrounded them. The two stood back to back, human and alien, against a storm. The leader of the enemy squad stepped forward, his voice sharp. "The human gave his organ to save you. He weakened himself. Kill him, and she will break. End this now." David coughed, blood on his lips, but he raised his head high. "If you want her life, you'll take mine first." Illyra's voice shook but grew strong with every word. "And if you want his life, you will go through me." The battle exploded. Again. David swung with all the strength left in him, his vision blurring. He felt every wound, every scar, yet his spirit roared louder than his pain. Illyra fought with fire she never knew she had, her body moving with a speed born not of training, but of love. For a moment, the enemy faltered. They had never seen such a thing, two souls so different yet fighting as one. But then disaster struck. A blade slipped past David's guard, cutting deep across his side. He cried out and fell hard to the floor, blood pouring fast, his rod clattered away. "David!" Illyra screamed. She dropped to his side, her hands glowing desperately over the wound. "Stay with me, please." His face was pale, his breathing shallow. Still, he forced a weak smile. "Don't cry. You're alive. That's enough." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "No, you gave me your life. I will not let you leave me now." The soldiers closed in. Illyra's body shook, but something inside her burst like fire. The glow from her hands spread wider, brighter, fueled by the bond between them. Her alien energy flared, pushing the enemies back for a moment. She stood, her silver eyes blazing. "You will not take him, not while I live." The soldiers hesitated. She was no longer just a weak patient. She was a shield, a force, and she stood for a human. They attacked again, but Illyra fought like a storm. Every strike was faster, stronger, born from the fire in her heart. She moved with the fury of someone who had something to protect. David, lying on the ground, watched her through fading vision. He could barely breathe, but he saw her, her courage, her strength, her love, and he knew she was no longer the girl he saved. She was the one saving him. At last, the hospital fell silent. The last of the enemies lay defeated, dragged away by retreating comrades. Smoke curled from the broken walls. Illyra dropped to her knees beside David. She pressed her hands against his wound, her tears falling onto his skin. "Stay with me," she whispered again and again. "Please, you gave me your kidney." "I give you my heart. Do not leave me." David's eyes fluttered. his voice weak but full of quiet warmth. You already gave it. Then his eyes closed, and his body went still. Elira screamed his name, her voice echoing through the ruined hospital. The city outside was still burning, the war still raging, but in that single room only one question remained. Could she save the one who had saved her? The hospital lay in ruins. Smoke drifted through broken walls, flames flickered in the distance, and the silence after battle felt heavier than the fight itself. Elira knelt beside David, her trembling hands pressed against his chest. His blood stained her fingers, warm and frightening. His breaths were shallow, uneven, fading like a candle in the wind. "Stay with me," she whispered, tears sliding down her silver cheeks. "Please, David, you cannot leave me now. You gave me life, I do not take it back." But his body did not answer. His lips moved faintly, but no sound came. The truth hit her like a blade. David Carter, the human who had given her his kidney, was dying. Elira's mind raced. Her people's healers had gifts beyond human medicine. They could transfer energy, even part of their life force, but it came at a terrible cost. To give too much was to give away your own existence. She looked down at him, her heart breaking. He had given her part of himself without hesitation. Now it was her turn. She placed both glowing hands over his chest, closing her eyes. "You gave me your kidney," she whispered through tears. "Now, I give you my heart." Light flared from her palms. Her silver glow poured into his body, flowing through his veins like fire. She felt her strength draining fast, her chest aching as if her own life was being pulled out piece by piece. David stirred, his breathing growing stronger, but Elira's own breath faltered. Her hands shook, her body weakening. Every second of life she gave to him was a second taken from herself. Pain tore through her, but she held on. "You saved me once. Now I save you. This is not your end. Not while I still breathe." Her vision blurred, darkness creeping into the edges. Still, she poured her energy into him, her own heart slowing as his grew stronger. At last, David's eyes opened. He gasped for breath, his chest rising steady again. He looked around, confused until his gaze found her, Elira. His voice was weak but alive. She smiled faintly, though her body trembled. "You came back." He pushed himself up, panic in his eyes as he saw her pale face, her glow dimming. "What did you do?" "I gave you what I could," she whispered. "You gave me life. I could not let you die." David's heart pounded. He reached for her, holding her cold hand. "No, not like this. You can't trade your life for mine." Tears burned in her eyes. "It is not a trade. It is love." Outside, the battle raged on, but inside that ruined hospital, time stood still. A human soldier held the hand of an alien, girl both bound by sacrifice. David shook his head, refusing her fate. "You don't owe me this. I saved you because your life matters, not because I wanted yours in return." Elira's lips curved in a weak smile. "And I give this because your life matters. More than mine." Her body trembled, her glow fading like the last light of dusk. "No," David said firmly, his soldier's spirit roaring. He pulled her close, pressing her against his chest. "If we live together. If we die together. I will not let you go." Something stirred between them then, something beyond organ or energy, something deeper than blood. Their bond, born from sacrifice, grew into a force neither world had ever seen. David placed his hand over hers, pressing it to his chest. "If you give me your heart, then I give you mine. We share this life. Both of us." Their breaths synchronized. Her glow returned, softer this time, not burning out but merging with his. It was no longer just her giving, but both of them holding each other in balance. Elira gasped, her eyes wide. She felt his heartbeat inside her, strong and steady, echoing with hers. They were no longer separate lives. They were one. The battle, outside, slowly faded. Reinforcements arrived, driving the enemy back. By dawn, the city still stood, scarred but unbroken. When the soldiers entered the ruined hospital, they stopped in shock. In the center of the wreckage, they saw them, an alien girl and a human soldier sitting together, hands entwined, their eyes closed, their breathing steady as one. Whispers spread like wildfire. A human had given his kidney to an alien had given her heart force to a human. Both lived, not as enemies, but as something greater. For the first time in the war, silence fell, a silence of awe. Later, as the fires died and the city healed, their story spread across both worlds. Some called it madness, some called it betrayal. But many, both human and alien, called it hope. David Carter and Elira became a symbol, not of war, but of what could rise beyond it. Their bond was no treaty, no weapon, no order. It was something stronger, the proof that even in the darkest war, one act of love could change everything. That night, under the quiet stars, David whispered to her as she rested against his chest. "You gave me your heart." Elira smiled faintly, her silver eyes soft. "And you gave me yours." Their hands remained entwined, their breath steady. Two lives shared, one bond unbroken. And as the stars shone over a wounded world, their story became a legend. A human gave his organ. An alien gave her heart. Together they saved more than each other. They gave hope to two worlds.